You already know. That's the part nobody talks about. You already know what you're supposed to do. You know you should study. You know you should start. You know the deadline is real, the clock is moving, and the opportunity in front of you will not wait forever. You know all of this, and yet you're here, still scrolling, still waiting, still convincing yourself that the right moment is just a little further away. That feeling you carry around with you, that low, quiet heaviness, that's not confusion. That's not a lack of information. That's the gap between who you are and who you know you could be. And it's growing. Every day you don't move, it grows a little wider, a little heavier, a little harder to cross. This video is about that gap. Not from the outside looking in, not with judgment or shame, but from the inside, where you actually live. Because there is a whole psychology behind why people who are brilliant, who are capable, who can see success so clearly they can almost touch it, why those exact people are often the ones most trapped by their own minds. And if you stay through this, something will shift. Not because of motivation, not because of some tip you haven't heard before, but because you're going to understand yourself in a way you haven't allowed yourself to yet. And understanding changes everything. Let's start with what your day actually looks like. You wake up and, for a moment, before the noise starts, there's a version of you that's ready. That version has clarity. That version knows exactly what today could be. Then the phone lights up. One notification. Just one. And that version of you quietly steps aside. Because the easier version takes over. The version that says 5 more minutes. The version that says I'll start after this video. The version that is endlessly patient about starting and endlessly good at convincing you that later is basically the same as now. It isn't. Later is where dreams go to slowly disappear. Not in one dramatic moment. Not in one big failure. Just slowly, quietly, one postponed decision at a time, until one day you look up and realize you've been waiting for years and nothing has moved. That is the reality for millions of people. Smart people, ambitious people, people exactly like you. And here's what's actually happening inside your mind when this plays out. Your brain is not broken. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is scanning every situation for threat. It is calculating the path of least resistance. It is protecting you from discomfort, from uncertainty, from the very real terror of trying and falling short. And when it looks at your goals, your projects, your dreams, it sees all of those things. It sees effort. It sees judgment. It sees the possibility that you might actually try your hardest and still not be enough. So it offers you an exit, the phone, the show, the snack, the nap, anything that takes the edge off that feeling, and you take it. Because it works. For a moment, it genuinely works. The tension eases, you feel better, and your brain logs that information. Avoidance equals relief, and it will offer you the same exit tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. This is not weakness. This is a pattern, and patterns are not personality. Patterns are learned, which means they can be unlearned. But first, you have to stop pretending you don't know what's happening. Because there's something else underneath this. Something you've probably never said out loud. There's a part of you that has decided it's safer not to try. Not safer in an obvious way. Safer in a quiet, calculated, almost rational-sounding way. Because here's the logic your brain has built without telling you. If you never actually go all in, if you never give your full effort, then you never have to find out what your full effort is worth. And that's terrifying to let yourself see. But it's real. As long as you hold back, as long as you coast and scroll and delay, you can keep the story alive. The story that says you could be great if you really tried. That story is comfortable. It asks nothing of you. It protects you from the hardest question, which is what if I try everything I have and it's still not enough? So you stay in the in-between, not failing, not succeeding, just existing in that hazy middle space where potential is still potential and nothing has been tested. That space feels safe. It is not safe. It is a slow kind of surrender. And the longer you stay there, the harder it becomes to leave. Let me ask you something. Think about the last time you genuinely went for something. Not halfway. Not with one foot already out the door. The last time you were actually present, actually committed, actually moving. How did that feel? Not the outcome. The feeling of moving. Because somewhere underneath all the avoidance, underneath the years of delay and distraction, that feeling is still there. That aliveness. That sense of being in motion, of mattering, of being real in the world, you haven't lost it. You've buried it under comfort, and it's waiting. Now here's where it gets confrontational. Because this is the part most videos won't say to you. You are comparing yourself to other people every single day. You're watching people your age build things, achieve things, grow into versions of themselves that feel impossible from where you're standing. And something happens in your chest when you see that. A complicated mixture of admiration and distance, and something that tastes a little like despair. You want what they have. You believe you're capable of what they have, and you cannot figure out why they seem to be moving when you're standing still. Here's what you're missing. You're not seeing their process. You're seeing their product. You're not seeing the mornings they dragged themselves to the work even when they had nothing. You're not seeing the days they produced something terrible and showed up anyway. You're not seeing the hundreds of small, unglamorous decisions that created the distance between where they started and where they are now. You're seeing the destination and comparing it to your starting point and calling that a fair measurement. It isn't. The only comparison that has ever produced growth is the comparison between who you were yesterday and who you are today. That's it. Everything else is noise, and right now, the noise is louder than the signal. Right now, the scroll and the comparison and the passive consuming of other people's lives is taking up space that belongs to your own. There's something else you're doing. You're treating learning like doing. You are watching, reading, planning, researching, optimizing your systems, curating your notes, building the perfect framework for the moment you finally start. And it feels like progress. It has the texture of progress. There's something happening, something moving, something being built. But when the day ends, nothing has actually been produced. Nothing has been created that didn't exist when the day began. Information without application is just a more sophisticated form of procrastination. You don't need another video. You don't need another book. You don't need a new system or a cleaner desk or a better morning routine before the morning routine you already have is even working. You need to sit down with what you already know and do something with it. Imperfectly. Incompletely. Before you're ready. Because ready is a feeling, not a state. And that feeling, if you keep waiting for it, will never fully arrive. Let's talk about perfectionism. Because you might not call it that. You might call it standards. You might call it caring about quality. But here's how to know if what you have is perfectionism and not standards. Standards make you work harder. Perfectionism makes you not start. Standards push you toward the work. Perfectionism gives you a reason to stay away from it. Because if you never submit the work, it can never be criticized. If you never launch the thing, it can never fail. If you never let anyone see the version you made today, you can protect the idea of the version you'll make someday when you're better, when you're ready, when it's perfect. That version will never exist. Not because you're not capable, but because perfection is a destination that moves. Every time you get close, it moves further. And chasing it means you're always becoming and never being. Always preparing and never acting. The person you admire most did not start from a place of mastery. They started from a place of willingness. Willingness to be seen doing something imperfectly. Willingness to produce work that wasn't their best yet. Willingness to be a beginner in public, which is one of the most uncomfortable things a person can do. And they did it anyway. Not because they felt ready. Because they chose motion over waiting. That's what separates them from the version of you that's still standing at the starting line. Now here is the practical reality of how change actually works. Because this isn't about inspiration. Inspiration fades. You felt inspired before. You felt the surge of energy after a video, after a conversation, after a late night, when everything suddenly felt possible. And then morning came. And the inspiration was gone. And you were the same person in the same room with the same habits. Motivation is weather. It changes without asking you. Some days it's there. Most days it isn't. Building your life around motivation means building your life on something unreliable. You need something that works on the days when you feel nothing. You need structure that functions when you're tired, when you're sad, when you're distracted. When the last thing you want to do is the thing you know you need to do. That structure is built through something simple and unglamorous. It's built through showing up when you don't want to. Not for hours. Not with perfect focus. Not with some version of yourself you don't have yet. It's built by sitting down and doing 20 minutes of the real work, even when every part of you is resisting. And then doing it again the next day, and the next. Not because it feels good, not because you've mastered it, but because you chose it. Because you decided that your future matters more than your comfort right now. That decision, made daily, is what discipline actually is. It's not a trait. It's not something some people have and others don't. It's a choice that gets repeated until it becomes automatic. And it starts small. It starts with 5 minutes before it becomes 50. It starts with one paragraph before it becomes one chapter. It starts with one step taken badly before it becomes a stride taken with confidence. Your environment is working against you and you haven't fixed it yet. That's not a character flaw. That's just physics. If your phone is next to you, you will pick it up. Not because you're weak, because it's there. Because it was designed by some of the smartest minds on earth to capture your attention and hold it. You are not fighting a bad habit. You are fighting an algorithm. And you cannot win that fight with willpower alone. You win it by changing the terrain. Put the phone in another room, not on silent, not face down, another room. Close the apps that pull you out of focus. Work in a space that signals to your brain that this is the time for real things. Remove the path of least resistance and replace it with the path you actually want to walk. Because when the distractions are gone, something happens. The work that felt impossible suddenly becomes approachable. Not easy, approachable, and approachable is enough to start. Let me talk about what happens when you fall. Because you will fall. You will have a week where you do everything right and then one day you don't. And that one day pulls you back into the old pattern. It happens. Not because you're failing. Because you're human. And this is where most people make their fatal mistake. They let one bad day become the story. One skipped session becomes evidence that they were never really changing. One setback becomes proof of who they secretly believed they were all along. And they use that proof to stop, to go back, to return to the comfortable misery of not trying, which feels safer than the uncomfortable reality of trying and stumbling. Don't do that. A stumble is not a fall. A fall is not the end. The people who build extraordinary lives are not the ones who never fail. They are the ones who never use failure as a reason to quit permanently. They acknowledge what happened. They understand why. They make one small correction, and they get back to the work. Not with drama. Not with a new plan or a new system or a new identity. Just back to the work. That's the whole secret. Just keep coming back. And as you come back, stop being at war with yourself. The guilt you carry, the shame you feel when you look at how much time has passed, the hatred you turn inward when you waste another day, none of that is making you better. All of it is making it harder. Because shame doesn't build. Shame paralyzes. You cannot hate yourself into growth. You can only move toward growth from a place that believes growth is possible. Talk to yourself like you would talk to someone you love who is struggling. Not with excuses. Not with permission to stay small. With honesty and with belief. You made a choice today that didn't serve you. Tomorrow you make a different one. That's all. That's the whole thing. Because here is what is true about you. Even right now. Even in the middle of the pattern, you can't seem to break. You still want it. That's why you're here. That's why this is landing. That's why you feel the weight of recognition in your chest when you hear these words. Because the version of you that is capable of more hasn't left. It's been buried under distraction and delay, but it's there. And it has been patient, far more patient than you deserve. And it is still waiting for you to decide. Not decide tomorrow, now. Not with a perfect plan, not when the conditions are right. Not when you've watched one more video or read one more article or figured out the optimal approach. Now. With what you have. In the time you have. In the room you're in with the resources that exist today. One thing. That's what this moment asks for. One thing that moves you even slightly toward the life you say you want. One message sent. One page written. One problem attempted. 1 minute of actual focused effort given to something real. It doesn't have to be impressive. It has to be honest. It has to be yours. Because the distance between who you are and who you want to be is not made of grand gestures. It's not made of perfect days or peak motivation or the stars finally aligning. It's made of small, real, unglamorous choices stacked on top of each other over time. It's made of mornings where you chose the work over the scroll. Afternoons where you stayed when you wanted to leave. Evenings where you finished instead of quit. That's how lives change. That's how the gap closes. Not in a single moment of transformation, but in 1,000 tiny moments of decision, each one nearly invisible, each one adding weight to the side of the scale that holds your future. You have been given something most people don't take seriously enough. You have been given time. Not infinite time. Real time. Limited time. Time that is moving whether you use it or not. Time that doesn't care about your intentions or your potential or the plans you keep in your head. Time that only responds to action. Use it. Not perfectly. Not impressively. Just honestly. Just consistently. Just one more day choosing the version of yourself that does instead of the version that waits. The life you want is not on the other side of more information. It is not on the other side of more preparation. It is not waiting for a better version of you to arrive before it begins. It is on the other side of the next decision you make, right now, in this moment, after this ends. You know what to do. You have always known. The only thing left is to do it. Go.